our kingdom. Greetings and God's richest blessings be multiplied to you and to your beloved family. You're tuned into another segment of Healing Our Land's live, interactive, worldwide broadcast exclusively here on the Boston Praise Radio and TV Network. I'm live in the studio with my special guest, my friend and sister in the struggle, State Representative Nika Elugardo, who is a candidate for the Senate seat. Is it Second Suffolk?
Second Suffolk, that's
All
right.
right. Amen. Welcome. How are you?
Pastor Hobbs, it's always good to be on Boston Praise Radio.
Yeah.
Black Praise.
Yes. So how is the campaign going?
Oh, I'm glad I can say, because it's not easy getting the mechanics up off the ground.
No.
That we are in our groove. And from the start, when we announced at the end of December and in January and February, got in the streets and businesses, that part's been fun. But let me tell you, because some of y'all need to run for office, the mechanics behind the scene, it's not easy to put together people that don't know each other well and have a functioning team that amplifies our values of love, of justice, of integrity, and treating each other well, even under stress. And it took us a bunch of tries, but we got there, and I'm feeling really good about it.
Awesome.
God has been really good in that regard.
Awesome. So tell people, this district, so this is a new area. This has been created post the census, correct?
Right.
So talk about the area that it covers.
Well, if we could just back up a second, because
sure.
I like people to have the background. What does that even mean? Most of the listeners might know, but every 10 years, there's a census. Just like in the Bible, there was the census.
Right.
Every 10 years, there's a census, and that census tells us how many people of color are where, among other things. And you might know when you look at the Congress, it's all white people, right? And so a lot of that's because of how their districts are drawn to make sure black people don't have enough in any one area to vote. Right. So the Supreme Court passed some stuff, and that means that we're allowed to, every 10 years, redraw things so that black and brown people can have more power to elect the candidates of our choice. Yes. Right? And so it was up for that every 10 years. And it was a little late because, Trump and then COVID delayed everything. So we just got this redistricting done at the end of last year. So that means the Second Suffolk District, you might have been used to having, say, Senator Nick Collins, and you didn't move, but he moved. So his line moved.
Wow.
And then also Senator Ching Diaz, who you might be used to having, say, if you're on the other side of Second Suffolk, then she went to run for governor, which she's no longer in that race, but she stepped down from that seat. So it's an open seat, and it has a different shape. So what is that shape, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So right now it starts basically at Mass Ave in the Boston side. Okay. Right there, like around where Lenox and Northampton and all those are.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's right around where South End starts.
Yes.
Okay. So you got from Mass Ave, and then you go all the way down to Boylston Street, and then all the way up the other way over to like around Harrison, and then it kicks off and down around Mass Ave almost all the way down to Columbia. So that's that one city side. Okay. That downtown side. And it stops at the commuter rail over there by Columbia when you get almost to Columbia Road, okay? Mm-hmm. So the neighborhoods, it's 7 neighborhoods. It comes from there all the way through Roxbury. So it has about all of Roxbury, a little slice of Dorchester. So it follows the train route on that edge along Columbia. So it doesn't go up to Upham's Corner. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry, folks, if you are in Upham's Corner directly or Common Square, you are in another district. But if you're on the Dudley side, the Dudley Street side of it, or the Nubian Square side, then you're right in the middle of it, and it goes straight up into Mattapan. So you got Roxbury, Mattapan, Hyde Park, Rosendale. It shoots around into Jamaica Plain, captures all of Mission Hill, which I'm glad we put Mission Hill all together, and then it's got Hyde Park and what did I say? Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, Hyde Park. Oh, Jamaica Plain, where I live. I'm gonna mix y'all up. Let me start over. Mission Hill, Jamaica Plain, Rosendale. That's what I represent right now.
Okay.
In the 15th Suffolk Rep District. And it adds to that the 4 neighborhoods of Dorchester, Hyde Park, Roxbury, and Mattapan.
Wow.
Where I just spent a beautiful afternoon with some business leaders. My word, God is doing incredible things, even in the hidden corners of parts of our city. And I've seen it in Mattapan. I've seen it in Hyde Park. I already knew about it in my district.
Right.
And, Nubian Square, there's just the energy.
Yeah.
The people came through COVID. Mm-hmm. The suffering is intense. Mm-hmm. And yet the passion And the drive has stepped up to meet that and exceeded.
Yes.
It's really a beautiful time. It's a beautiful time to be in this city. And 2023 is, I think, here's my prediction, folks. It's going to be one of the hardest years we've ever experienced and one of the best.
I concur. I totally concur. I tell you, I had the opportunity and responsibility of bringing the word on this past Sunday here at GMCC, and as you came into our building, you could see physically the rebuilding of this 136-year-old structure.
Is it 136 years
Yes.
old? Wow.
Yes. And so from Dorchester Temple Baptist Church to Global Ministries Christian Church, Pastor
That's
Bruce has
right.
been here 20 some odd years, 74 years
Pastor
young.
Wall.
And, from 12 Baptist to Shea Booze to...
Just a second. Did you say Pastor Bruce Wall is 74 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Young?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I would not have guessed that. But it makes sense because I known him for 20 plus years. And he was like older than I am now when we met.
God has kept
I'm
him.
about to be 50, so
Wow.
okay. Next year.
Next year. That's right. Well, it's amazing how God has given him this multimedia, even this platform, Boston Praise Radio TV Network. I mean, multimedia, 74. The vision that God's given him is just amazing. We don't have an FM platform that's owned. This is the only FM signal that's, again, FCC licensed. Let me underscore that. There's lots of pirated stations people are on, but Pastor believes in, rendering unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's and unto God the things that are God's, and doing it slow and right, as opposed to, and we have this incredible vehicle that we own. And as you said, we've had you on as a state representative.
Yes.
And as well as Hula Mejia, our at-large city councilor. And so
we used to have our little show.
Yes. And
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we had to pause right now while we're in campaign mode.
That's right. Yeah.
But the vision that God has given him, and I just such respect for he and Pastor Kay, how they've been here and they've served. She's a licensed clinical social worker, but just the heart and a passion for God and for the people, and this building, to see the structure being totally rehabbed and being preserved. With many churches, with gentrification that's happening, we see churches are being bought. Many we see on the South End, as you talked about, many that are black churches, from Concord Baptist to New Hope to Bethel Pentecostal, to so many churches that were there that are no longer there. They're condos, and they've moved to other places. Milton and Bishop Glenn Weeks, she stayed in the city and was able to get a bunch of property, and is doing a great lot of work over there.
I should look her up. I haven't talked to her in a long time.
Yes. She is actually the first woman bishop in the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, which is the denomination that I grew up in. So she's doing phenomenal work.
She always has been.
She really
always has been.
She has. So, but God is.
She was one of my star students back in the day when we did outcomes measurement on the youth program.
Oh, really?
20 plus years ago.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What a small world.
I know, right?
But to see, as you said, about all this movement that's happening. So even in the midst of gentrification, the fact that Global Ministries is still here, and the vision that God gave Pastor Bruce Wall for this multimedia that we had that preceded the pandemic, as many churches were not able to gather or had to embrace technology, and he's even teaching other churches now how you do multimedia, because now people are having to do hybrid kinds of things that some folks are not really wanting to come back into the temple.
Right.
And so having this opportunity to talk about Nehemiah rebuilding the wall, and him being broken by the state of his people.
Can I tell you something?
Please.
I mentioned I used to do outcomes assessment training, right? And we did a lot. We did hundreds of organizations and leaders, and probably 40% of them were working with youth.
Yeah.
And there was one particular Cape Verdean father, I won't name any names, a dynamic youth worker, back when I was working with then Minister Weeks. And he said that outcomes measurement is from the devil. It's the white man's devil.
Really?
This is what one of our Cape Verdean charismatic fathers said. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about the fact that when I say to you, who are the 10 youth that are your superstar stories of, like, this is what we're trying to do? Yeah. Immediately, do names come to your mind? And he said, yes. And I said, do you know that your brain just did who knows how many millions of calculations in an instant?
Wow.
you made an assessment.
Mm-hmm.
All we're asking you to do is slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
And so my partner then, Steve Damon, who was a partner that was doing this work with me, he drafted a part of the curriculum, because we had helped the Black Ministerial Alliance and the Boston Capacity Tank back then. Some might remember those days.
Yes.
I was the first trainer that Ellen Bass trained there.
Wow.
And then together we trained the city on how to do outcomes measurement.
Yes.
And I changed the name to outcomes assessment,
Mm-hmm.
because I want people to understand the measurement is just one piece of what your brain is going through.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that maybe white people, but people have watched Black people do things and then learned how to codify it.
Yes.
This is exactly what we need to learn. And so Steve Damon produced the Nehemiah curriculum to help people understand the biblical nature of assessment and measurement.
Are you serious?
And we incorporated it into our curriculum whenever we were working with faith-based leaders. And this particular father, who's still kicking and roaring, became like an evangelist of this work, because people understand God has made us to evaluate our situation.
Yes.
Now, the State House, that's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Black and brown people, immigrants, we naturally assess.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we can go very far and become critics.
Yes.
But the flip side of that, the beautiful side of that, is we're constantly figuring out which hustle works,
Yes.
which thing is going to really produce the result. And bringing that is, we sometimes call it street sense, because I was raised, as we've talked about before on the show, by a father who may be a pastor now in a Pentecostal church, but raised me running the streets. And, that life came with a lot of things, but one of the perks was you learn how to think
Yes.
about things in a very strategic way.
Yes.
And when you bring that into the State House, you can codify
Yes.
our culture.
Yes.
You can codify our Black economy.
Mm-hmm.
You can codify our Black politic.
Mm-hmm.
Just the same way that white male landowners codified theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why everything we do is criminalized. Not just drugs and cannabis and all that stuff. That's just like baseline. Our way of doing business is criminalized.
It is.
Right?
It is.
So Nehemiah, he laid out the blueprint.
He did. He did. Well, I learned so much even in the assignment, and so it just given me a real a burden and a passion, as you said. And so it's this weird kind of a burden that pushes you to intercession and prayer and fasting and sacrifice, that God gives you revelation
Yes.
and strategy. You
Yes.
know, and so this is part of that strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell people you really talked a little bit about it, but talk about who you are and your platform, and some of the things that make you different, because there's 3 other people, I believe, that are also running for this seat.
Yeah, 4 people, and
4.
three are quite strong. That's true. And so we are rich.
Yeah.
And that means that these days, now that we have our own Black Senate district, 5 additional BIPOC districts, Black, Indigenous, People of Color districts, will be the only Black district, which is a very powerful position
Mm-hmm.
for all people of color across the state.
Mm-hmm.
And on the state rep side, we went from having 21 majority people of color districts to 34, 35 up in there.
Wow.
And so why is this important? It's important because now, instead of just having really low standards that we were taught by decades of predecessors
Mm-hmm.
around what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Do they show up?
Mm-hmm.
Do they care?
Mm-hmm.
Do they know us?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody running is going to meet that standard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So think of it more like a job interview.
Mm-hmm.
When you're hiring somebody to do a job,
Mm-hmm.
you assume they come with the baseline qualifications, or you're not bringing them in.
Right.
Okay? Showing up, yes, check. You got to check these boxes. Care, check the box. Have passion, have delivered in the past, check. Everybody's going to have a record
Mm-hmm.
where they've done something interesting,
Mm-hmm.
because all our public servants right now
Yes.
have been doing wonderful work.
Yes.
So now we got to think, we got some great candidates for this job position.
Mm-hmm.
What are the kinds of questions we're going to ask to distinguish them?
Mm-hmm.
How do you lead?
Mm-hmm.
Are you delivering leadership?
Mm-hmm.
Now here is my suggestion, and y'all know I'm biased, because who am I? I'm a candidate for the 2nd Suffolk Senate District.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But hear me out. you want to be asking the kind of things I ask for other things that I'm voting for.
Mm-hmm.
A good candidate is going to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to pass legislation.
Yep.
They're going to bring home the bacon
Mm-hmm.
and earmarks.
Mm-hmm.
A great candidate is going to have a clear strategy that they can articulate.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing that? How am I doing it?
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm listening to you when I make those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
An extraordinary candidate isn't just listening to you to do their job. They are helping you be extraordinary in your job.
Wow.
This is the question you should be asking.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to help me
Mm-hmm.
do my business with my business colleagues in this Black community?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to help me pursue my career
Mm-hmm.
alongside the other people that need to pursue a career? How are you going to help me lead in dismantling structural racism and inequity for our people and codifying the beautiful economy and culture of Black and brown people in Boston for everyone's benefit?
Yes.
How are you going to help me to do those things?
Mm-hmm.
And so let me answer my own question.
Yes.
All right. So baseline. Yes, I know what we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
I too grew up with street life. I too have lost people.
Yes.
I too have taken in my family when their father was shot and helped my sister to raise her kids. For those couple years, we had the benefit of them being with us and watch them go from states of deep trauma and expulsion in one case to being top students who care and love about themselves and artistic and dance again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are all going through these things.
Mm-hmm.
I understand because I've lived it. I too have been without a home. I didn't know it because every time we got evicted, Grandma would take me in. I don't know where my dad was living some of the time.
Wow.
But grandmas, both of them, made sure our baby had a place to sleep and eat.
Yes.
And so I never felt homeless.
Yes.
But many times we did not have a home.
Yeah.
Unlike my friends, I had to move 14, 15 times as a child. But I always had a place to move to,
Mm-hmm.
even if it wasn't mine.
Mm-hmm.
I had many friends that didn't experience that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got to college, I really focused on homelessness
Mm-hmm.
because I came from Columbus, Ohio at 17, the oldest of 7. So I packed, back then you could pack a suitcase that was literally busting at the seams with stuff hanging out of it and you tape it around. So you could put everything you own in that one big suitcase and bring it straight up onto the plane.
Wow.
Like you could do that before 9/11.
Right.
And so me coming in 1991, I came that way. And every single year,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm about to be 49, and so I've been here 31 years, and that my birthday's on July 31st. So I was prayerfully counting up each year what God has done in my life here as a servant to this city.
Mm-hmm.
And each year we've done amazing things, believe it or not, because I have never, any year, worked alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into community and economic development after getting out of MIT. My dad, by the way, because I mentioned the life, he did go through several overdoses after he stopped selling and came into healing and has been in a state of healing. He stopped using when I was 30. And that's an interesting story that I might tell later about how I had to go to collect my dad from the crack house because nobody could get him. I had to drive 13 hours to go get him.
Wow.
But that's a different story for both of us. 30 years ago was some of your listeners weren't even born when that happened.
Right.
No, 20 years ago. I was 30 at the time. And so anyhow, I ran a statewide program almost straight out of college. That was if you've seen the movie Forrest Gump, folks, that is my life. Like I find myself in these places doing things where I'm like, how am I here? And that foreclosure prevention project that I ran under my director, Gary Klein, and the National Consumer Law Center, we developed a national model. We sent our testimony to Congress. And that's the foreclosure prevention that people experience now.
Wow.
And I was responsible for explaining the math behind that and for helping Mass Bankers Association understand they should invest in it because nobody's going to pay you more for a house than the person that lives in it and wants to stay in it. And so you can just rework that mortgage, which is now a commonplace practice. But we had to convince them of that. And the housing counselors that you can work with bankers, you can make demands, and they have a shared interest with your people. And I stayed in that work of community and economic development throughout my 30 years. Ended up being tapped by then Treasurer Steve Grossman to run another statewide program, as God would have it. I'll be honest with you, until I ran for this Senate seat, I had never necessarily seen the line.
Right.
Because I was just following God in each step of the way.
Sure.
But now I'm like, oh, banking and finance and housing. Like, that's basically, I say community and economic development, but I'm always thinking about the community leaders I'm supporting. The stuff that MIT and Harvard and BU Law trained me to learn is just like tools that I need to get in there.
Yes.
So I never really thought about it like that. And then I look back and say, wow, the second time I worked with Mass Bankers Association, when the treasurer tapped me to be the founding director for asset development, y'all, the wealth gap that we talk about, the $250,000+ in assets that white people have in Boston compared to the $8. They're updating that. It's called The Color of Wealth, that document. Do you know that members of my steering committee were the Federal Reserve Bank people that worked on that document back in 2011, 12, 13. And I remember I was telling somebody this story today because I was with Chase Bank in Mattapan. Take a look, because I'm thinking Chase Manhattan. Chase Bank in Mattapan. Go inside that in Mattapan Square and talk to Miss Sabrina there, who is not a banker, but she, I think, is paid like a banker to be a community development person. And they have set that up to help our people understand how to use banking for their benefit, to begin that process. And there's a lot more work to do. So I was working with banks like that. They didn't exist as much back then. And so when I said economic justice is going to be the mission of this coalition, the Mass Save Coalition, but not there's a Mass Saves, but before Mass Saves, there was Mass Save. And that's for helping you save for housing, helping you save for college, helping you save for your citizenship. Those are all assets for your car. Yeah. Those are all assets. And those assets add value to your wealth.
Yes.
Okay, the $8,
yes.
The $250,000, okay?
Yes.
And so we were helping people all across the state match their savings and demonstrating to the state that when you provide the financial education services alongside that, from birth all the way to when somebody's elderly and entering into retirement and beyond and end of life, that is a return on investment to the state.
Absolutely.
So even in the State House, we're still trying to get a bill done to like codify that. Codify, what does that mean?
Yes.
Write it down and make it plain. Is that not what Nehemiah had to do?
Yes.
He codified what was just and right for the people at the time. And so my whole life has been about mastering the institutions that are these white supremacist generated, even fascist leaning. That means, we see that in the Supreme Court now, that autocratic sense that a small group of people who hate everybody but themselves get to make a decision about everybody else's social order and put it in the law. They're codifying it.
Yes.
Okay, why don't you come into my neighborhood and codify some black power, because that's going to help everybody. That's how we roll.
Yes.
And so when I was doing that work, and I had done I found things. That's what I have done for a living. People tap me as an entrepreneur to help get things going and to wrap a business model around them. And so we wrapped a business model around the Emmanuel Gospel Center's consulting. That's why I was doing the outcomes assessment. We wrapped a business model around community-based research, applied research and consulting. Out of that came the Youth Violence Systems Project. I don't know if you remember that. After the Boston so-called miracle,
yes,
people wanted to do an assessment. So that was the group that I founded. And from that, we learned what people have learned across the city, across the country, actually in other countries as well, but across this country in urban areas that have high levels of youth violence and young adult violence. Gun control laws are important, but they do the kinds of guns that we're using in our communities are illegal. So we have to be strategic. And what did these youth, because we street involved youth in the research, as we involve people in every research, whether it's elder stuff, climate stuff, whatever it is. And they said to us the information that helped us understand what is common sense to any of us who grew up in the life. If I have a job, if I have food to eat, a place to live, and a pathway forward, I'm taking it. And if that is the streets, I'm taking it.
That's right.
But if we provide
Yes.
career pathways
Yes.
and mental health
Yes.
and wellness
Yes.
and behavioral health supports,
Yes.
whether it's formal or informal,
Mm-hmm.
but provided,
Yes.
people don't shoot each other
Right.
because they're healthy
Yes.
and they can feed their families.
Mm-hmm.
They can get jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've brought that into my state rep work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so proud of so many of our young men who have stepped off the street
Mm-hmm.
and they're working copper with a black copper master, T. Michael, shout out.
Yes.
People's Academy,
Yes.
shout out.
Yes.
They're going through our Boston Housing Authority program we set up, and they're getting their grants that go to their Main Streets businesses so they can go work up the street. So that part of Center Street and Heights Square where I live, where people were complaining 2-3 years ago
Mm-hmm.
about the way things are on the street. Nobody wants to come in my business because of who's hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Those same hanging out people,
Right.
them or their friends are working inside.
How about that?
Even if it's for 6 months, a year, 3 months, whatever we've been able to put together,
Yes.
and then sort of build a program around their workforce development. And all this it sounds nicer than it is. It's like chaotic. I mean, it's like crazy. But the outcomes are beautiful.
Yes.
Because now, one of the business owners and one of the Main Streets owners told me that place people were scared to come by, those same people are policing it. Like,
Right.
my friend's in there, pick that up. And I can't stand some litter. So
Right.
I will come at them for throwing some trash on the street. I had it wasn't really altercation, but in Mildred Haley, which is in my district, I have a relationship with the folks that just hang out because I know that's their home, even though they're not allowed to live there. So, we have a bill and a pilot to house formerly incarcerated people in the communities where they grew up. And the BHA and Kate Bennett, shout out to her. And big shout out to the crafter of this legislation, Leslie Cradle at Justice for Housing, who has now
Yes.
spoken before the White House on this thing that we did together.
Wow.
Amazing woman.
Yes, she
Anyway, she came in with a long list of stuff, and I was like, let's pick one. And that's the one we did. And we took it. It's almost all the way. The pilot
Wow.
came through. We got $100,000 for the pilot. But now the bill came through the Housing Committee. Anyhow, so I'm in Mildred Haley. I digress. I'm in Mildred Haley, formerly Bromley Heath.
Yeah.
And I see some of my brothers, and I usually know different ones of them. This time I only know one. So I'm taking a risk. Because the one I know he is kind of connected, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I'm like, I'm going to take a risk. And I just go over and I start asking them, how are you going to help me get the kids off the street, et cetera. It's a conversation we've been having for years. And then I'm like, I notice you're throwing a bunch of trash right here. Because they're drinking and whatever, which I don't mind. But I do mind that you're throwing your stuff on the floor
Right.
and on the ground.
Sure.
And then one of the guys is like, well, what you going to pay me to do it? And I'm like, you told me this is your community. It's mine too. Do I need to pay you to clean up after yourself in your own house? What's the matter with you? And I was like, I'm taking a risk because I don't know him and he's got different things going on. And then you know what he said? Several of them said, we're just messing with you. We're going to clean this all up. Sometimes, I have been told sometimes when the ghetto comes out, it looks different than I think it looks. I don't think that's true, but anyhow, I think it's like black mother love. Like, there's only one way to do black mom love, that's not true one way, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a consistent strain. So to bring it home, listen, folks, what we need to understand, because all that stuff it's very important, and still in the grand scheme of things, don't take this the wrong way, it's chump change. Mm-hmm. It took us $500,000 to launch that one program. Mm-hmm. And then you and I, Pastor Hobbs, we launched another pilot.
Yes.
With Sheriff Tompkins.
Yes.
And we brought the ballot box initiative right into Suffolk County. We wrote the bill that you brought me.
Yes.
And we pulled that out from a bigger bill that we didn't know was going to go in there. We took that piece, we said, let's pilot it. Mm-hmm. And I like to bring the data.
Yes.
And Sheriff Tompkins' team was so helpful. We brought the data, we testified, and look, now it's codified in the Voting Act, a lot of those provisions. And so this is what happened. And there were a lot of people that were part of that. Rep. Tyler, Rep. Miranda, who's also in this race, took it over the finish line. But there is no finish line if you don't have the people like you who are going to work with me when nobody thinks it can happen.
Yeah.
And just go ahead and do it.
Yes.
Show people how it's done.
Yes.
And then say, look now, did anything bad happen? No, only good things happened. Recidivism goes down.
Yes.
People are more engaged.
Yes.
And justice is happening.
Yes.
And then we want this to happen in every facility.
Yes.
And I'm over at that's the county. I'm at the state most of the time.
Okay.
Because, I go out to MCI Norfolk a couple
Yes.
times a month and visit the other state facilities. And I work with the African American Coalition Committee there, who we try to introduce everybody to, just as Rep. Holmes introduced me to them. These are brilliant men
Yes.
who are activists who don't belong in jail.
Yes.
And we're working on that because they have done amazing transformational work.
Yes.
And now they are doing the academic as well as the organizing work to dismantle structural racism in the system, in the system of so-called corrections.
Mm-hmm.
And so they drafted a bill
Mm-hmm.
that had been in the system.
Mhm.
I was able to file that bill with help from them, and Rep. Holmes showed me how it was done, because this was in my very early term. And we passed the Structural Racism Commission, which
Wow.
people laughed at us at first.
Yes.
And then I was appointed to be the House Chair.
Wow.
And we weren't able to get prisoners and inmates on the commission legally
Yes.
because of a legal battle.
Yep.
So we got it in the Senate, not in the House. So my co-chair, Jamie Eldridge, and I, we just deemed the people who had drafted this bill as on the commission. And so they set up their own commission. And right now, I'm going back Thursday to pick up the systems map that we made together. They made that systems map, and I trained them how to do, because that's my background. How do you map out the system of structural racism
Mm-hmm.
at the DOC? So the recommendations we have don't do what they usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And folks, this is very important.
Mm-hmm.
This is very important. You're like, Nika, you're rambling. So let me just put a box around this so you can remember this one part right here, okay? If we pass every bill,
Yes.
there's 8,000 bills and change in the legislature at this moment.
Wow.
Most of our lives will not change much if that's all we do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've experienced. Why did we pass criminal justice reform a year before I started, and it's not reformed?
Mm-hmm.
Why are the lives of inmates not improved?
Mm-hmm.
Why are correctional officers more stressed out?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there resistance to this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And people they jump, point fingers. No,
Yep.
that was predictable, because nobody in the system drafted those legislations.
Mm.
Nobody, whether it was a staff or an inmate who lives there, they were left out of the process as soon as they expressed the problem. People went off, did stuff in the room, came back, here you go, do it. When does that work in what community? Never.
Never.
So if we could do that 8,000 times over,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to see the same thing that you see right now.
Absolutely.
The question we need to ask of our elected officials and the candidates is, how are you going to reverse that trend? Not by doing more, faster, better than the white man that came before you.
Mm.
Heading faster, stronger, down the same path and bringing black people now? No, that's not what we want. What we have in our community, we know how to act.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to organize. We know how to develop systems that last.
Mm-hmm.
We got to stop focusing on all the things that get broken because of structural inequity,
Mm-hmm.
and look at how we have sustained
Mm-hmm.
through oppression, enslavement, which, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
has started its emancipation in 1863 and is still not complete.
Come on.
I want researchers out there, somebody do this project for me. Go back to before 1863, 1861, even before the Civil War started.
Okay.
Pick a couple of states
Mm-hmm.
and people who are enslaved, because I don't like to say slaves.
Mhm.
That's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were not slaves. We were enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
Pick a couple of states. Calculate the cost of the shoddy food, clothing, and housing that they received.
Mm-hmm.
Update that amount to $2022, and I will bet you it's more than the minimum wage.
Of course.
People who were enslaved,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they lived better,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm saying the situation is the same.
Mm-hmm.
The corporate model
Mm-hmm.
is not a person.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mindset
Mm-hmm.
that has legal rights
Mm-hmm.
to oppress us.
Mm-hmm.
And we normalize that.
Mm.
And now people are fighting against it because middle class people and white people are feeling the pain,
Mm-hmm.
which always happens. It's like a big boat. We're all in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
The black people live over here. The Latin people live over here. The AAPI live over here. The indigenous were all over it, and God just like pushed to the corners. They probably built the boat. And then the white people live over here. And the white people lob a cannonball into the black side of the boat. Yes, the black people will sink first, and everybody close to them will sink after.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, the
now.
whole country goes down.
Yes.
And that's what we're feeling. We're feeling that sucking sensation of the Titanic going under.
Yes.
But the good news about that is that whole system needed to be broken apart anyway.
That's right.
Because it's racist, it's anti-gay, it's anti-queer, it's anti-woman, and we could dress it up however we want. That hate beast has a whole bunch of different legs.
Yes. Yes.
And if you just tack the leg that's tacking black people, the other leg is going to squash you eventually. We got to go at the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go into the State House, it's not just about passing legislation. Yeah, we passed legislation. We passed stuff. We've given out just a few examples. But it's about how and who was engaged in that codification. And are they now empowered to continue doing something differently when I leave?
Yes.
That's why the Senate district is so important. Not only is it 7 neighborhoods, it's automatic chairmanship, it's automatic bigger budget because it's 40 instead of 160. And many senators do great policy work, but don't come from an organizing background, and especially a BIPOC, black, indigenous, people of color, immigrants. We know how to organize in a different way because suffering brings out something in you that if you don't figure out how to navigate it, you die.
Yeah.
Inside or literally. And so bringing that strategic power. So Team Nika is about delivering leadership and delivering change, giving you the tools to measure it. Yes, Nehemiah. Assess it. Yes. And also to continue that change down the road so that it's no superstars involved.
Yeah.
But we have codified and put it in the law. And the power to do that as a senator is vast. And a lot of white senators will look to senators of color. We've got Senator Lydia Edwards there now, thank God. It'll be the first time there's 2 black senators, I believe.
Ever in the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah. And so that's like a good chunk of the Boston senators. And so they will be looking to us in Boston and across the state as we will be looking to them. The people of color in other parts of the state, to really understand what do we need to codify. So, hey, you hit up your fish, you started up your little fish company in your kitchen and you had to go under the table. Well, what does that mean? Who said it was under the table? Your Haitian grandmother's kitchen is cleaner than most of the restaurant kitchens in here.
Come on.
Okay? So why can't we codify that?
Right.
We can make that okay. You got a line going up the street coming to buy your fish sandwiches while you're saving money to buy a permit. Why do you have to buy the permit? You should just be able to identify that you should have the permit. Why? Because these big, huge companies, they can afford to do that. They can pay for stuff. Just like I believe. We don't do this in Massachusetts. That's what brought me to the State House as a law student. I believe that the richer you are, the higher taxes you should pay as a proportion of your income.
Sure.
Because that's still going to be chump change to you. And then if you're very poor, pay nothing. Okay? Now, Massachusetts has a flat tax. They call that fair. But actually giving everybody the same when their starting points are vastly different is structural inequity and racism reinforced.
Yes.
Okay? And so we're working to change that. And so when you come at structural inequity, I spend a lot of time in prisons. But I don't spend time in prisons because I think our main issue is prison or even mass incarceration. That's the symptom of the main issue, which is that the money, not just the cash, folks, also the financing mechanism, those banks that I mentioned before, they're not acting like Chase in Mattapan Square. Okay? They're codifying products that bless another community, that take our investments and give them to others. And we can reverse that. We can do what is happening in pockets, and we can mandate it for the whole state. So I know I've been all over the place. I can do stuff concisely, but there's so much I feel like we can do. I want people to understand just a little foretaste of what you can do. And many of you are doing it. And you're like, yeah, we need to do that up in the State House. And there are many people that know how. I do believe I'm the only person in my particular race that has demonstrated that in the way that I operate and think. And I've worked closely with several of my candidates and have deep respect for the important work that they do. But not everybody needs to be running a Senate office where you're not just about making a name for your projects and getting them done on behalf of your community, that is laudable. But we have an opportunity right now to literally dismantle inequity and recodify it. And I have given these pilots as examples. I'm not messing with y'all. I used to be you. I used to be the person that felt like it was a waste of time to vote and like everybody was the same. I tell you, every single one of my black and brown colleagues is working very hard on our behalf. The reason we don't see change is because people don't understand and have the background and the experience on the streets, combined with that experience at those high-level analytical models to bring that together and break it down for the people so that we can make change together that lasts and it's not dependent on us. Most of my black and brown colleagues, if I don't want to speak for people, but seems to me feel an enormous weight to go back to the community and say, we did it for you, what you said. And that is a part of it, but the focus can't be me. I'm not trying to be your superstar. If I wanted to be a superstar, I tell you what, I have talents.
Yes.
I would have gone elsewhere.
Yes.
Like many other people.
Yes.
I want to be your servant.
Yes.
I want you to get up on my back and take off. I want you to feel like September 6th, the election day, isn't just my first day on the job. That's your first day on a new job transforming the city. And it's before us. The worst suffering we've ever seen is ripping apart this city and this country. But it's ripping apart that faulty foundation. And what is left there is us. The people that have already been experiencing that for centuries. And we can show this city and this country what it looks like to do it right. Economics, education, housing. We know what needs to be done. Give us the keys and we will unlock the door for everybody, not just black people. That's our destiny. And I believe that's my destiny to help.
Wow. 617-282-0685. I'm live here in the studio with Nika Elugardo, State Representative Nika Elugardo, candidate for 2nd Suffolk Senator. 617-282-0685. Or you can write us. Perhaps you're not in a position to be able to call, but you can write us at 670 Washington Street, Dorchester, Mass. 02124, and we'll make certain to be able to get the question to. And we'll have all the candidates will be coming on, and some have come on for different particular seats. But we want this to be a live, interactive, ongoing conversation. So again, this is feel free to give us a call at 617-282-0685. We're on other social media platforms, and this broadcast will re-air. But talk about, again, you gave an incredible vision for what Team Nika will look like and when you get in that position. But how can people be able to support you? What do you need, and how can people be able to support you at this stage? If it resonates with what you've said, how can they support your campaign?
Well, the easiest way, if you can get online, is to go to electnika.com.
Okay.
So that's my name, Nika, Nika. It means you're victorious. So Pastor Hobbs Nika means Pastor Hobbs conquers or is victorious. So that's something my parents didn't know when they named me, but God knew.
Yes.
Ancient Greek. It's on those crosses. Jesus Christ is victorious. ICXCNIKA.
Wow.
And so my destiny is to be there for your conquering, your dreams, whatever. That's what I've trained my whole life to do. And electnika.com. Elect, go vote and elect me. electnika.com. That pops up a donate button. That's very helpful because I've been focusing on a few other things, and they're telling me we've raised over $100,000, but these days you need so much money, which I think is crazy. Yeah. What do we use it for? To send out mailings, to hire people. We pay a fair wage. My minimum wage is $18 an hour. It was $15 in my first election 4 years ago when I'm upgraded because things are more expensive.
Sure.
And so, we pay people, but we actually run on volunteer energy. We have people that work almost full time on this campaign. By the time they put their volunteer hours together, what are they doing? They're making calls, spreading the word. They are helping us with our graphics, with our social media. They are knocking on doors in all 7 neighborhoods. They are going on business tours with or without me. They're coming with me to events, putting on the Nika shirts. And that's another thing we got to buy is Nika shirts, yard signs, all this stuff. So go to electnika.com and sign yourself up. And you can sign up to volunteer. You can get on our mailing list. If you support another opponent, you can get on there and do your opposition research. Be careful, you might get sucked in. It has been known to happen. But we don't intentionally try to take anybody's people, for sure. And whoever you support, should I have the honor of being elected, I will work as hard for you as if you worked tirelessly for me, because that's what I'm there for. That's what I've been doing these 4 years. That's what I've been doing these 30 years. And all of the candidates, we have one thing in common. We're going to continue to do what we have always done.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the candidates have done some exciting things.
Mm-hmm.
So look at what we've done and then decide, what do you want the future to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm positing to you is the failures that I've had, I've learned more from them than even from the many, many successes.
Mm.
And what I have learned is that a good leader
Mm-hmm.
does their job.
Mm-hmm.
A great leader engages you in doing their job. An extraordinary leader engages themselves in helping you to be extraordinary
Mm-hmm.
in your work.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I have trained to be
Mm-hmm.
and who I have been.
Mm-hmm.
And people like to know you've delivered. Sure, we've done that.
Boston Bridge TV Network. Hello. Yes, yes. Hold this a moment. I'm going to put you live on the air. You need to turn down your radio, please. Thank you. We have a caller. Caller, you are live on the air. Give me just a moment to mute the something here and go right ahead. Can you hear us, caller? Hello? We lost the caller. Caller, please do call back. I'm so sorry we lost that caller. Call us at 617-282-0685. I apologize. We lost the call, but we did have a caller. So the caller hopefully will call back, and other people you can call at 617-282-0685. I want to say to you publicly, Representative, again, you acknowledge the pilot, the ballot box initiative pilot, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for that, because I had no idea how. I just knew, again, I got my marching orders from the returning citizens who we were just going in kind of helping them to know that they had the right and they're specially qualified here in the state of Massachusetts. And we found that out in the process of going to City Hall, getting the mail-in registration forms, as well as the absentee ballot applications, and the sovereignty of God. Let's try this again. Caller, you're live on the air. I'm so sorry. Go right ahead. Can you hear us?
Now I can.
Okay, you're live on the air. Go right ahead.
Okay, I don't have a question, but I have more of a statement to make.
Okay.
Nika, there's just something about you. Your tenacity. You remind me of a young Barack Obama when he was coming through the ranks, when he was told that he could not compete against Bobby Rush because he was an unknown. And I love your tenacity. I love what you stand for, and I hope that you become our next leader, because we need leadership in the city of Boston. I just admire what you're doing. I like the fact that you're out there. I see you. I see you up close and personal, and I see you from afar. And I just like to remind me of a young...
Is this your radio that's in the background? You got to just turn that down, because you're getting, that's the feedback is. Just talk to us. I don't know if you wanted to shoot.
Oh, thank you, sister. If you want to share your name, I can say thank you by name. And let me tell you this. Go ahead, sis.
My name is Monet.
Monet. Beautiful name. Thank you, Sister Monet in Mattapan. I think I mentioned I was just having another wonderful, that third or fourth business stop there. This is an exciting time. And what I want you to know, Sister Monet, is that while I may be the only person in this race who is a systems changer and a leader maker, I'm not the only person in this city. And I intend to be one of many. One of many. Up in that State House, in City Hall. We already got them bursting at the seams now.
Yes.
Okay. And across the House and the Senate, Massachusetts is destined once again to revolution. But when we do a revolution the black way, everybody will benefit. Not one class, not one income level, everybody. Because we rise from the very, very bottom of the income level. But our hearts and our passion and our vision and our faith is already at the top. And so when you see me, don't superstar me. Don't superstar me. See me as a representation of what God is doing in this city through everyone. And we're all, as one sister told me, on that path in different places. And I will be here for you to pull us into the State House so that we can make that path stronger and safer and more solid for everyone. One day I'm gonna have to come back though and talk about what does that investment look like.
Yes.
Oh, because I like to break down the money.
Yes.
Because some of my people in my race, they keep throwing out these dollar amounts, and I'm like, well, I know exactly how much the budget is, and I know exactly how much money came from the federal government. And so we got to be really careful with our numbers and really challenge people to break it down. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee as well, and so grateful that we've been able to bring more money into my district than the actual chair of Ways and Means. No offense to that wonderful guy, but because it's all about getting the people engaged and understanding how people work and think, whether they're the speaker, whether they're the Ways and Means president, whether they're a kid who was presently or priorly shooting the other kid, and now they're getting jobs that the one kid got for the other, because the one kid helped me get an earmark, and I went to the other kid that was shooting at that side of the city and saying, fine, shoot people up and let those white maniacs down in DC continue to make a mockery of us while we have $50 billion just sitting over here. That actually, by the way, the community and Heath Street youth that you're shooting at, they helped me get that $1 million. So what are you doing? And those young men put on Nika shirts and they were like, we're ready. It was actually 48 billion at the time. They're like, you said 48 billion. We heard it. I was like, you guys are smarter than half the people I work with. No offense to the people I work with.
Absolutely.
They're just brilliant.
Yes.
But what are you doing with it? Come on. Just the same way I say the guy's throwing the trash on the ground.
Yes.
What is the matter with you? You're a leader. You have the bearing of a leader. Get out here.
Yes.
So it's not just me, Monet. It's not just me. We got to call it out on each other and stop tearing each other down.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about other elected officials, whether we're talking about kids on the street shooting, whether we're talking about guys who are laying on the ground in front of this place that you want to walk into to get your 7-Up or whatever you're drinking.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be activated on this. I don't care where you're laying, sitting, sleeping, or standing. And we have the power to call that out in people and to change somebody's day in their life. And if they don't have it, or if you don't have it right now, we can call it out in you, just like it's been called out in me when I was in this place of depression, taking a run around the pond because I couldn't even find a way to sleep at night. We've all been there.
Yes.
And the Senate is no different than any other job, that it is a place where black people have been shut out. And when we come to the center of it, we transform the heck out of that thing.
Absolutely.
And when we transform it, that transformation blesses everyone. September 6th, y'all.
Yes.
My first day on the job, hopefully. Your first day on the job. We got a lot of work to do, and I think we're ready to do it.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Nora. I don't know if she's still there,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, keep that fighting spirit. I love it.
Yes, well, I got to learn the right jab and the left hook by the time I was 7, and I had to use it quite a few times. Not to say that's why I ever won. I always had some backup, but I did never lose a fight. So,
well, I love your wit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller. God
You're
bless.
welcome.
God bless you. Can you believe it? Unfortunately, we really only have 2 minutes. The time always flies by, but I'm so grateful that you stopped. And continue as you're on the campaign trail. Stopped here, back at Boston Praise Radio and TV Network, and you're welcome here, and we hope to have you back. But Again, we're how many days away from the primary? Because I know which people, September 6th people think, but like we're how many days away?
Yeah, we're about 55 days away from the primary, but you can start voting 10 days earlier or 11 days on August 27th.
Okay.
Early voting opens up on weekends, mandatory. So there's going to be some polling locations available. But help us get the word out. If you're like, you haven't been in my community, you know what that means. It means either I was behind the scenes, because I think I've mentioned some things people have participated in. You didn't know I was back in the back.
How about that?
Because I found out at a young age, if I'm not in the back, then too often everything focuses on me.
Yes.
And then when I leave, the thing falls apart.
Yes.
But when I'm in the back, my energy goes out to other people. So being an elected official, I have to be very intentional because I'm always out front, constantly pushing people ahead of me, constantly pushing you ahead of me. And so if I haven't been in your community, it could be that, or it could be it's a big community and I represent another part of the city. I am asking you to adopt me back to the home where I used to work for all those decades that I talked about, so I can step out of this little tiny 3-neighborhood district I got and spread my wings as you're spreading yours. Okay, and we can fly together. So invite me. Call us up. 617-504-9981. Why am I not saying it twice? Because that's my cell phone number. So if you really love it, you got it. But you can go on the electnika.com and you can find us, and actually the campaign number and all that stuff is there. But we are going to be the first of many. This country's democracy is not dead or fake. It is traumatized. Like any life form that's traumatized at a young age, it's a young democracy, it gets developmentally stuck.
Wow.
Like any life form, when it heals, it can be better. Like people that come out of incarceration or come out of trauma or come out of abuse and heal are some of the best, strongest, most amazing people you'll ever meet.
It's true.
That's going to be our democracy. And it's up to us because we are the bricks that built it from the start, and we're the only ones that can save this country.
Wow.
Black Boston, yes, I'm saying it's on you. It's on us. Let me help you help our country. September 6th, y'all, we're going to get this done. It's a new day, and it's time for something new.
Thank you, Representative Nika Elugardo.
Thank you, Pastor, as always.
You're welcome.
Black Radio, hey!
Yes!
Taking it by storm.
Yes! And thank you for being tuned into another segment of Healing Our Land's broadcast. If God said the same, we'll see you tomorrow, same time, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., Tuesday through Friday, Sunday evening, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. God bless you, and good night.
God bless you.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream and be judged from within, hunted by a power that cannot see past my skin. My views are viewed as ignorant, my truth always denied. My history is shrouded in a spider web of lies. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read. Of the freedom of press, somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
How can I pledge allegiance to a country built on lies, or raise my children to believe they're equal in its eyes? My leaders are